We're going to test the breaking strength of the tennis racket gut rigged up to a pull down scale. Whoa! That was violent. Huh. Wow. Dude, look at that. It finally did pop, but we were over 100 pounds. Well over it. And look at that. Look at the force. I've had this thing for years. Look at that. I was not expecting that. Holy cow. Okay, I think it's safe to assume that that is really, really tough stuff, even in single strand. You're gonna need a tape measure, some type of pliers that have like a wire cutter on them. That's what you're going to need to cut the gut material. You're going to need 2 C-clamps. And a little bit of sinew. Probably 6-7 pieces. So have those already prepped out, stripped out to about like that. Back sinew works great. You could use gut material like sausage casing. And you need your clip 16 gauge natural gut, uncoated. First thing you're gonna do is measure your bow from nock to nock. So we got 64.5 from nock to nock. When you're setting up your C-clamps to lay out your string, the distance from outside to outside you want to be 3 or 3.5 inches shorter than your nock to nock measurement, and that's because you want to put just a little bit of twist into the string, and that will help lock everything together, and that will help keep these strands from sliding around and sliding past each other. You don't need a ton of twist, just a little bit. And so if you're at 3 to 3.5 inches, by the time that you twist it some, you'll be at about a perfect brace height. I think here we're sitting at right at about 6 inches. And I like 5.5 to 6 inches on my bows. I'm gonna measure from the outside of this clamp right here, right there. I'm shooting for about a 5.5 inch brace height on this bow. The brace height is the distance between the handle and the string. The style of string we're gonna make with this is called endless loop. You're gonna take your gut out. You're gonna uncoil the gut. And what we wanna have is enough for 3 strands of this. I'm gonna get enough of this unspooled to go from clamp to clamp 3 times. This is on the outside of the board, and we've got the bottom part of the clamp here, okay? I'm gonna take this string, and I'm just gonna tie a real basic, little like an overhand slip knot. And I've tied it off to the C-clamp. See that? It's tied off to the C-clamp. Now, I'm gonna run this down. Bring you guys with me. We're gonna run this down. We're tied off there. And we're gonna go around this C-clamp, right around the post. We're gonna come back down. So that gives us one. There's two. Try not to get it a tangled mess. Got a slight kink in it right there. It's all right, but we don't want that in the string. No big deal. So there is three. I very comfortably out of one pack am gonna get 2 strings for a 64, 65 inch bow. So there's my third time, right? There's the clamp, there's my third time. I'm gonna bring this out like so and give myself enough to wrap down in this eye. So I'm gonna come out to make this easy for you guys. I'll talk measurements. I'm gonna come out at least 5 inches past the C-clamp. I'm gonna take my wire cutters. We're gonna snip that off. Go ahead. I'm just gonna lay the tape measure on it for right now. So we're gonna reinforce the eye of this string with another additional piece, right? And that piece, I wanna stagger the ends. So I'm gonna go right like this. I'm gonna cut it this long. And that piece, if I measure it, that bonus piece is about 10 inches long. So you're gonna cut 2 of those. You need one for each end, one for the eye at each end. So you just snip off. There's one 10-inch piece. There's the second 10-inch piece. You're gonna take one of your sinew pieces and we're gonna wet that. So I'm just gonna chew this real quick. And I have 3 pieces of sinew, about 11 inches a piece. And I should be able to get this eye splice with 3 pieces. It may take me 4, 3 will probably get it. So what you wanna do is lay in your reinforcement piece. Make sure that your ends are staggered. You don't want them side by side. So these ends are a little bit staggered. Okay, I'm keeping tension on everything. That's really important. Here's where I had this running end, right? This gut's coming down. And this is the running end. I also have to look out for where that joint is gonna stop. So that all looks good. Everything's staggered out. So now you can see, so a lot of people say, well, won't your eye be weak, right? Because you only have 3 strands, but you're only really making the 2 passes in the eye. And no, the eye is not gonna be weak when you reinforce it this way. So this is gonna form your actual loop. And I've got my 3 sinew pieces all done out here. And this is the hardest part of the whole procedure, is keeping everything straight. Remembering which one of these is the tag end. It's this one, because periodically I'm going to want to pull down on this to make sure that I keep tension and that the actual line doesn't go slack. So right here, I'm going to come down. I'm going to come down from here 1.5 inches. Okay, from the back of this, I'm down here 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches. From the back of this post, that's going to be where my eye starts, right? So you're going to lay this strand parallel going up into the eye. You got to make sure this stays tight and make sure that tail stays tucked up into there. But what we're doing right now is we're serving the eye of the bowstring, and we're reinforcing the eye of the bowstring. So here we're pulling. You will kind of drive yourself nuts with trying to do this. If you're trying to do it all primitive, you could put a couple sticks down in the ground, I suppose. I don't know, cool like antler pieces or a piece of bone or something. So I like to periodically pull on these tag ends to make sure that we're keeping the tension even off that third line that came up through there. So there you can see we're starting to form the eye. Now at this point, once I get up to the top and I'm real close to wrapping right up against that post, I'm gonna let this C-clamp off. As long as everything's still tied up, we're good. And I like to scoot it down about 2 inches. Okay? I'll still know that here was the center of the top, and that's not a big deal, and I'll show you that here in a second. So we're wrapping. Now we don't have that post in our way, but we can keep some tension over here. So we're wrapping. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this once you get the hang of it. So here I've got the tag end of that. So I'm at the end of my sinew strand. If you had gut, if you were using like sausage casing gut, you could probably get it all in one. But I'm going to come in, lay a new piece in, make sure everything stays tight like that. And we're just serving that bowstring. We're going to have a total loop length of about 3 inches. Okay, don't forget to every now and then pull on that tag end. So now that we're here and we've gone past where the metal post on the C-clamp will be, we're going to back the C-clamp back up to where it was. See, it was right there. So that's still the middle of the string. We're still doing great on that. We haven't lost any of our tension on these lines. Everything looks great. And right there, get one more. Now you can see we're wrapped here, we're wrapped here, and that formed our eye. And now we're just going to bring that eye together. Pull real tight. Make sure everything stays real tight. And we're just going to wrap that eye down together. And we've got our reinforcement piece up in there. It's doing great. That's going to really strengthen that eye. You know, by 33%, it's going to help the abrasion up there. It'll take a little bit of the tension load, especially being wrapped, spliced in like this. It'll help just reinforce the body of that string. So here we've got the same thing again. I've got my third sinew piece, and you can see the tail. Here's all the ends, and they're staggered coming out. Okay, and I'm just gonna lay that down in there. I'm gonna lay this right down in there next to it. So you've got both tails going down. And you're just gonna wrap down over it. Okay, and wrap everything down, wrap it real tight. Another cool thing with this style of string is you don't have to get the body, because they already wet spun it, and they go through a lot of gut making this high-end gut for these rackets. You don't have to go through and wet all this. This string is going to be ready to shoot as soon as I'm done serving these eyes. And I'm pulling real tight. Make sure we're still in frame here and doing good. Yep. So just pulling tight. Pulling tight. And I'm going to finish this off just like you would whip standard bowstring. And I'll try to get 3 or 4. So I make the loop like this. Okay, this starter is on the top, this is on the bottom, and I'm going the same direction that I was wrapping this down. So I'm going 1, there's 2, we'll go with 3. You could do 5 or all the way up to 7. The three's gonna hold it. There's 1, 2, and 3. So we brought it around. Pull that really, really tight. As tight as you can get it. And that is how you form the eye. So that is a completed eye. And we're going to repeat the process. There's a completed eye. There's our 3 strands down here laying parallel. We're just going to repeat the exact same thing for the other eye. We're going to lay in the reinforcement piece. The end that was tied to the clamp, we're just going to untie it and lay it back into the body of the string. Let's go get our final weight measurement and see how this stacks up against the sinew strings. So we made our string for our like 64.5 knock to knock. This is all we had left. Maybe I have about 3 feet of material left out of the package, and I made 2 strings. Here's my first string, and the second string is still stretching out on the bow. We're going to measure this in grains. 168.6 grains. Like I said, you could make a 4-ply, and it is never ever going to break. But let's see how fast this 3-ply string will shoot a 560 grain arrow. What's amazing and interesting about that is literally like 100 grains lighter than any sinew string that I've ever made. And I've made some thin ones. So this is 100 grains lighter, and I anticipate that we're probably gonna get, with that being said, if we've got 100 grains of difference, we should get about 5 feet per second difference, 5, maybe 6 feet. We're gonna take a couple shots with the new gut string 560 grain arrow. $163, $164. I love that. That'll work. So the last little pro tip I have is, as you are serving and wrapping that eye splice and serving down to hold everything in place, you can use a little bit of wood glue. You could use a little bit of hide glue if you wanted to be totally traditional, but that will help lock everything in, and then you can coat back over it after it's dried down. You can put another coat of the wood glue or hide glue over it to help hold everything in.